Let's pray. Most gracious Father, we ask that you provide guidance to our city staff and to this council as we proceed with the business of our great city of Newman. Watch over us all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Davis, Graham,
Here.
Candia,
Here.
Day,
Here.
Mayor Martina.
Present. Okay, item 5, declaration of conflict of interest. There being none. Next item, 6, ceremonial matters. None tonight. Number 7, items from the public, non-agenda items. This is anytime you want to get up and...
Ron Jefferson, 428.
Ron, why don't you go to the mic, please?
Good evening. Ron Jefferson, 428 Sumac Lane. I'm here to talk a little bit about the point in time count that's going on. As some of you know, that I have a foundation that Friends of Yours project here in Newman, and we officially became a nonprofit as of December 19th, 2015, and we help the homeless and people in need with drug addiction, whatever mental illness and things like that. And we have a great opportunity here to help some of these people with some of the people that's been coming in to assist us to help them get their GEDs, deal with their problems and so forth. But I did want to talk about this. As you probably all know, this Thursday, the 28th, we have the point and count for the homeless here in Newman, and it's going to be over at the park, and we're to be. It's part of the Family Resource Center, and as well as some of the people from the city here are going to be doing that. And we went out and blanket the parks and so forth like that, where we know they hang out, or went out there personally, met with them, encouraged them to come there and do the survey so we could see what their needs are. And if anybody needs any of this information, I have it here. And if you'd like one of these Friends of Yours official paper here for the foundation, I could give you that too also. And I believe that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Ron, could I ask you, how many people are going to participate in this point in time?
I spoke to anywhere roughly about 13 to 15 of them. There is a few in jail right now, and I expect one of them to be out here in a couple of days, but I don't get involved with they're in there for. Mm-hmm. But our focus is to try to help them what their issues are, and so that's where we're at on that. But we hope they strongly come here and participate in the program.
Yeah, I think the hours that they had down to actually be trained to do this are just impossible for some of us at work.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to try to go on Wednesday if I get off work early enough to do the training. But otherwise, I took Thursday off my regular job to go to the park and attend that to hope to encourage some people to come. All right, so.
It has been helping out a lot of people there, because I go there myself, and I know $9 for that.
Yeah, well, everyone knows Ron, of course. Ron's done a fantastic job in trying to pull this all together, and we appreciate all your efforts.
Well, thank you. Well, I couldn't do it without everybody's help too.
I know.
Group effort. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Any other items from the public at this time, please?
My name is Brian Escobar. I live off of 25155 Jorgensen Road. I am currently a student over at CSU Stanislaus. School just started this week, so I haven't had much time to prepare for this, but I'm here on behalf of the fellow veterans that are dealing with PTSD that are using medical cannabis for their for their own issues.
Sir, just 1 second. That's a public hearing, so we're gonna take public comment on that separately.
Okay.
This is for anything that's not on the agenda. The
Gotcha.
item you would like to
I'll
speak
hold
about
to
is
that,
on the
my thoughts
agenda.
then. I'll hopefully fix it.
Okay,
Thank
got
you.
it.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss at this time? Being none. 8, consent calendar. A, waive all readings of ordinance and resolutions except by title. B, approval of warrants. C, approval of minutes of the January 12, 2016 meeting. D, adopt resolution number 2016, next number, a resolution authorizing the approval of the statement of investment policy for the city of Newman.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 4 with 1 absent. Number 9 is public hearing. We're going to move this up. We're going to put the B up to first. We're going to do consensual approval of general plan amendment number 16-01 for the purpose of the housing community development submittal and review. And this is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you is General Plan Amendment 1601, also known as our Housing Element Update. The city's consultant, Martin Carver, is here, and he's going to be presenting the item to the city council. I'll be deferring to him.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Martina, members of Newman City Council, Martin Carver with Coast Plans. So the item we have before us tonight is the conceptual approval of the housing element. This is for purposes of submitting it to HCD, which will then undertake a 60-day review and then return it to us with any comments for improvement, changes, et cetera. At that point, somewhere around late April, we'll be bringing it back to the City Council for final adoption, and at that point, then they have a 90-day period to do their final certification. During this period between now, essentially, and April, we'll undertake some CEQA review as well on the document. We don't expect it'll be much heavy lifting, but it is a step we need to go through. So with those preliminaries, let's dive into this. I know we have a hearing. Thanks, by the way, for moving this item up. I'll be brief. I think the job here tonight is fairly straightforward. Your Planning Commission, we met back in November and had a workshop, a very successful workshop, and got some good input. Since that time, we've been working hard on pulling the document together, interviewing various stakeholders, and working with Housing Authority folks to get numbers and the like. And then we went back to Planning Commission last Thursday on the 21st, and they recommended that the City Council approve this document conceptually, again, for the purposes of submitting to HCD. So I want to talk a little bit about housing trends, can report on the housing condition survey work that we did, briefly touch on the housing needs allocation, talk about vacant and available sites, and then dive into policies and try to get out of here quickly. How's that? So the good news is while, let's see, the last time we did this exercise, it was 2008, 2009. And of course, we were just at the beginning of a very tough economic period. And since that time, there has been very, very little housing, new starts and the like. But things have repaired. In part, back when we measured in 2008, 2009, we found, I think, 450 properties that were in some state of foreclosure back in the day. A huge foreclosure problem. And of course, it wasn't just Newman that was experiencing that problem, but Newman felt the brunt of it. Today, this year, actually last year, a couple months ago, when I measured again, looked up the statistics, I could only find 24 properties that were in some state of foreclosure. So all of that property has been absorbed, has been dealt with, almost all of it in any event. Always going to have some number of units in some state of foreclosure. It's just the nature of the beast, I suppose. But it's a good metric, if you will, that things have mended and the housing market is ready to get back on its feet and start working again. What we have found in the last few years with so little housing activity is that the vacancy rates, of course, have gone way down. When I looked and went online to explore what the price of a rental was, it was hard to even find listings. And of course, when I did, it gave me a good sense that the housing prices had gone up, not astronomically. Google didn't move into town. That's probably a good thing, but they did nonetheless go up. But mostly, I think what was striking is just the lack of availability. So all of this lack of housing activity has really had its share of burden, placed its share of burden on the city. And of course, you guys know it better than I. I hear the reports. Now the rest of this is what you know. New construction is ready to gear up, and we have annexation areas in the wings that are getting ready to go. So it really does seem like the housing market's going to begin again anew soon. Diving into housing conditions, one of the first chores that I undertook back in November was to survey that area of the city that contains most of the pre-1980 housing stock in the city, and that's actually outlined on this map here. Mostly west of Highway 33, a small area on the east side. As I recall, yes, 987 housing units in all surveyed. This is a windshield survey, driving by fairly quick, fairly don't get out of the car, don't go into the houses, don't walk into the back of the properties, anything like that, what can be seen from the street. But to get a real good sense. And of course, as you know, the housing stock in the city is in good shape. And I found 35 instances where I actually had a cause to fill out a form, and most of those were for something just very, very minor, like needed some paint touch-up or something like that. You have, 3 or 4 actual houses that are in some state of dilapidation, and you know full well which they are, which ones those are, because they were here the last time we did this exercise. Every city has them. Let's see, let's move right on. Then moving on to the housing needs allocation. These are the numbers that StanCog generates periodically. This is the amount of housing that the city needs to be able to provide vacant and available sites for during the housing element period. In this new period, a total of 778 units. If we look at those units and we look at now moving into the table of vacant and available sites, what I've done is taken the first 3 categories, extremely low, very low, and low income housing units, put it in the first row here, and then treated moderate and market rates separately. And you can see on the next to last column, there are the StanCog. There's the StanCog allocation. There are the 778 units. You can see in that first row of extremely low, very low, low, a total of 305 units are needed. We actually have sites for 369 units, so we have a surplus of 64. In every category, you have a surplus. Now, I need to point out that the reason you have a surplus is largely because of this area here, because of that northwest area. Without it, the number of sites that you would have for very low, the extremely low, very low, low income, the apartment rental housing would come up short. So what you'll find, and we'll talk about it in just a moment, is I've added a new housing program that memorializes what you're doing already, which is to start the wheels in motion to annex that area and to bring it in to make the necessary upgrades to the sewer treatment plant to provide services to it and to get that moving, because the housing numbers in part depend on it. So then diving into policy and program changes. Very little, really. You'll note if you had time to peruse the document that this is divided into two sections. You have policies on the first couple of pages and then what we call programs after that. The programs being more of a to-do list. In terms of the policies themselves, just a couple of very minor changes, really not substantive at all, in part just to deal with changes in state law or to just clean up the language. In this case, on policy H 3.1, to simply make reference to Title 24 more directly than we did before. In policy 5.1, to add the word "and developmentally disabled," because new state law requires that when we look at disabled citizens and the housing needs of those citizens, that we now also look at what they would term developmentally disabled, as well as the other disability classes. So adding those words is part of what HCD looks for. Now diving into the program portion of this, the first thing we did was delete the existing policy H1 program H1, which was to rezone 3 sites, and that has been completed and it's done with, and so we've deleted that program. We've replaced it with the program that I just mentioned a few minutes ago about annexing that northwest master plan area and getting that process at least started within 1 year of adoption of this housing element. That's what HCD is going to want to see, in part because they need to know that the sites are out there vacant and available for the developers to build the housing should they so choose. Policy H4 suffered a similar fate. It was simply, in this case, this was a program to create an incentive program to encourage development of upper-story housing on suitable downtown sites. I am, as I'm sure you are, so impressed by the fact that City Hall has been relocated to this building here. And as far as I can tell, redeveloping this site and in making an investment in downtown and taking one of its old beautiful buildings and refurbishing it, you couldn't do anything more than that, really, to encourage people to come downtown and join you. Really, it seems like the need for this program has just fallen by the wayside. You've actually put your money where your mouth is and actually invested in a big way that should, if people are so inclined to do housing in the downtown area, they'll do it because they know the city is staked a claim here. Program H7, again, just adding a phrase, a reference to the developmentally disabled. H8, just some cleanup language. In fact, it needs further cleanup because I've got continue to in the first line twice. But in any event, it's just minor cleanup language. H10, in this case, this was about green California green building standards. In the old language, there was reference to a date, January 2010, and language after that. Again, just cleaned up to bring it up to date. H14, we recommend deleting altogether. This is a program calling for the adoption of standards for the design, maintenance, and operation of multifamily housing. Now, this came up in 2008, 2009. I think this is where this policy program first came. The concern being that if more apartments were going to be built, that the city wanted to have additional tools to be able to make sure that it was high-quality housing and the like. And in working with your city staff, we get every indication that there's enough tools already available to see that good projects come forward. There's already a site review that happens, and it seemed like the actual need for an additional set of regulations, in this case in the form of a set of guidelines, wasn't really warranted. It hasn't been something that's been acted on in any event. And it's not something HCD is going to insist upon. I think you guys are doing just fine without it, so I recommend deleting it. H16, this is all about the Federal Neighborhood Stabilization Program. This was part of the fallout of the 2008-2009 housing collapse. The program is finished. and then reference to it is no longer necessary. So that was it on the changes to the policies and programs. Very, very minor. Really, the only thing of substance there is just a program to acknowledge that work is needed to bring this annexation area in so that you have the sufficient sites to meet your STANCOG allocation. This is your table of quantified objectives for housing, and it calls for 838 housing units in all. This is sort of a crystal ball. I mean, there's nothing magic about this table. This doesn't commit the table, this does not commit the city to actually producing somehow these 800 some odd units. Doesn't commit private developers to somehow build this housing. It's really just our best attempt to say, knowing what we know, knowing what projects are already out there, already in the pipeline, what we think will happen over the course of the next 10-year period. And in this case, STANCOG estimates that the city will grow on average every year about 2.2%. So I took today's housing numbers and grew them by 2.2%, came up with about 835 or something like that, and then started looking at the actual projects that were in the pipeline and cobbled together my best guess at how it will play out. But again, there's nothing magic about the table. It's just a sort of a best guess. And of course, if you have any wisdom as to how to make the table better, we want to hear it. So that's really it for the presentation. If you want more, please just start asking me questions. I've tried to be brief because you actually have more heavy lifting to do this evening than to deal with this interim stage in the housing element, and it does come back to you for final adoption with an environmental document that can inform you of any environmental impacts that might be associated. So tonight, the work cut out is pretty straightforward. This is the schedule we set up with the Planning Commission a couple of months ago. We're still on that schedule. We went to Planning Commission last week on the 21st. Today is the 26th. By February 1st, given a couple of days here, and any comments that we receive tonight, any direction to make changes, we'll work those in, and I will ship this thing off to HCD to begin their 60-day review, and then we'll be back in April. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions from the council?
No, I appreciate it. It was very intriguing. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Since this is a public hearing, I'd like to open it up to the public for any questions you might have. There being none, I bring it back to the council for direction.
Recommend that we move forward with the conceptual approval of the general plan amendment number 1601 for the purpose of HCD submittal and review.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion has been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? A motion carried 4, 1 absent. Thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you very
We
much.
greatly appreciate
Nice to
it.
see you all.
It looks very promising.
It does.
Okay, back to item A. Item A, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2016, next number. An ordinance of the City of Newman amending Title III Business Regulations and 8 Health and Sanitation, Section 3.01 Revenue License and 8.07 Medical Marijuana Dispensaries of the Newman Municipal Code, and authorize staff to publish the summary of said ordinance. And this is a public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight is a public hearing for ordinance 2016 next in number regarding the prohibition of marijuana cultivation, commercial sale, transport, and distribution thereof. The first reading of the proposed ordinance was held on January 12th. A public hearing notice was published on December 3rd, and no formal comments have been submitted to date. The proposed ordinance is a result of outcomes caused by Proposition 215, the California Medical Marijuana Program, Assembly Bills 266, 243, and Senate Bill 643. These various laws and programs have limited criminal prosecution for medical marijuana users, but have also set up a state licensing scheme for commercial medical marijuana uses. It is important to note that marijuana is classified as a Schedule I drug under the Federal Controlled Substances Act, with the high potential for abuse. However, the aforementioned laws, in conjunction with Riverside versus Inland Empire Patients Health and Wellness Center, make it expressly clear that each local government has the inherent authority to regulate its land use within its jurisdictional boundaries, in the city's case, the Newman city limits. Furthermore, said laws allow cities to completely prohibit commercial medical marijuana activities, which includes sale, transportation, distribution, and cultivation, even for personal medical use. State law mandates that such prohibitions be in effect by March 1st of this year. In order to meet this deadline, the ordinance would need to be adopted tonight. Otherwise, the state becomes the sole licensing authority for those activities. The proposed amendments to Titles 3 and 8 would completely ban the commercial sale, transportation, distribution, and cultivation of marijuana, including medical, within the city of Newman city limits. If adopted, a violation would constitute a public nuisance, and civil penalties would be established. Additionally, the ordinance would allow the city to deny any and all business licenses and uses, applications for medical marijuana collectives, cooperatives, dispensaries, and any uses for the distribution, cultivation, transport, delivery, or processing of medical marijuana, or any activity that requires a license under the aforementioned bills. Via adoption of the ordinance, the city would be better equipped to address residents' concern about marijuana uses and activities within the city. Therefore, staff recommends that the City Council hold a public hearing, conduct the second reading, approve ordinance number 2016 next in number, and authorize staff to publish a summary of said ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the council at this time? If not, then I'm going to open this to public hearing. And would I ask anyone that comes up, please state your name and address. And remember, there's a number of people that probably want to express themselves. So let's try to hold it to 3 to 5 minutes or no more. And then we'll all be able to get a chance to. So who would like to speak tonight? Thank you.
Hi again. My name is Brian Escobar at 25155 Jorgensen Road. I am a current student over at CSU. I'm also a veteran. I know some of you here as I was also a volunteer firefighter before recently. I resigned because I was dealing with PTSD actually and going to the VA. Since last Memorial Day, the VA through the Senate has approved medical cannabis as long as the state provides that. And so I'm now in the works right now to get my license to be officially prescribed through the VA to have medical cannabis. Now, I was also doing some research on Jim Wood, assembly member who made an open letter to all the county and city government officials about this March 1st deadline that I want to, I guess, submit publicly, but I can also just read it here. Like many of my colleagues, I began a public service career as a local level where decisions made in Sacramento have often profound impacts on the decisions we make in our communities. Over the last several weeks, I've learned that the cities and counties were scrambling to put regulations regarding medical marijuana in place ahead of March 1st deadline that were inadvertently included in AB 243 of the Medical Marijuana Regulations and Safety Act. As a former local elected, I understand this reaction. However, I am writing this letter to clarify some of the confusion that has resulted in the inclusion of the March 1st deadline in the MMRSA. The MMRSA will bring a multi-billion-dollar industry that has grown up largely in the shadows into the light. Ultimately, the goal is to provide Californians with the legal, consumer, and environmental protections that we have come to expect with every or any other industry. During the scramble at the end of the legislative session this year, an inadvertent draft error placed a deadline on local jurisdictions, requiring them to adopt their own land use regulations for medical cannabis cultivation by March 1st, 2016, or turn that responsibility over to the state. As soon as I was aware of the error, I published a letter to the Assembly Journal, the official record of the Assembly, declaring my intention to pass urgency legislation as soon as the legislation reconvenes in January. The compromise agreement in the governor's office did not include the March 1st deadline, and this urgency legislation will ensure that the MMRSA legislation intent was not altered. I have already amended one of my bills with language that will strike the deadline and maintain a local jurisdiction's ability to create their own regulations. As an urgency measure, the law will go into effect as soon as it is signed by the governor. My intent to remove the deadline as a bipartisan and stakeholder support. The governor's office is prepared to partner with my office to ensure local control in the issue. I appreciate the governor's acknowledgement of the draft's error and his office willingness to work with me to quickly resolve the problem. Even if my urgency measures are not signed until March 1st, the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulations, the entity responsible for developing the state's regulations, currently exists only on paper. It is many months before the Bureau has the capacity to develop and enforce statewide regulations. Additionally, we have received legal feedback confirming that once my urgency measure is in effect, jurisdictions will retain local control they need. I'm confident that my colleagues and I will eliminate the March 1st deadline before it becomes a realistic problem as opposed to a theoretical concern for local lawmakers. Respectfully, Jim Wood, Assembly Member, 2nd District. I would like to submit that, and as well as my own personal statement that banning like a full ban has not worked with alcohol. If someone's going to do something illegal, they will continue to do something illegal. We are legal or law-abiding citizens that would like to stay within the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who would I hand this?
Anyone else like to speak to the council?
Hi, my name is Jose Farrell, and I live at 1346 and a half Peach Street, right up the street right here. I am currently a cancer patient. I have multiple few surgeries, and I am a legal marijuana card holder prescribed by my doctors. And if you guys ban this, I want to know what am I supposed to do, because I cannot take medication for pain and stuff that I got, and I'm still fighting cancer, and I got a colostomy bag on me that I gotta keep clean every day and stuff, and it helps me with my pain. I would like to know from you gentlemen sitting up there, by banning this, what are these medical people gonna do? Are you guys gonna make us move out or what? I can't even grow mine because I don't want to get ripped off and end up hurting somebody. So I got to go out to the Chemist Club and buy it in order to provide for my pain. I mean, you guys are going to be hard on marijuana. Why can't you be hard on these other drugs that are out here and people are doing, like meth and all, heroin and all this shit that, you know, really harms people? Marijuana don't harm people. It helps them out. It depends on how you use it. If you abuse it just like alcohol and everything else.
I don't think the goal is to eliminate you from using your marijuana. I think it's to stop the cultivation of it in the communities so you don't get ripped off. Like you yourself said that you would get ripped off. That's why you don't grow it. The dangers that are associated with that and the other problems that arise from that.
I can understand some, you know, what you guys are saying, but, you know, the thing is, you know, by one making it bad, the rest of us all got to suffer, you know, and, you know, I don't think that that's right. You know, I live here, man, I pay taxes here, I shop here, I don't go nowhere. For 6 months, I was bedridden and going through cancer treatments like I am right now, you know, and like I said, my liver is wasted. It's none of you guys' fault but my own for being stupid. I'm 61 years old, you know, and I abused drugs, you know, by being stupid and not listening to my parents back then. Okay? I made a mistake like we all make. But now I'm suffering for it. And by you guys putting these bans on this, you know what? Yeah, I could see some of these guys that are out here that don't have a card or, you know, have a license to grow or need it for medical use. I could see them not have it, and you guys imposing, you know, your laws on it. But us guys, you know, I get $670 a month from my SSI, and it barely covers my rent here.
Sir, just as a point of clarification, this ordinance would not stop you from continuing to utilize the medical marijuana under the Prop 215 as you're currently using it.
Okay.
It would not allow for the, it would not allow for the cultivation of it, but it would not allow, it would not stop you from using it.
Okay, I can see that, but, you know, another thing too is, this is being brought up here in the city council, you guys are voting on this, and none of the public here knew nothing about this. If I didn't have my friend that called me up last night and said, hey, you know, they're voting to legalize, you know, marijuana within the city limits and, you know, even medical holders and stuff, you know, you guys never put out anything to anybody come and speak their piece about this.
This is actually the second time this has been held at the city council level. It's also been published in the newspaper that we were going to hold the hearing, and it was also on the front page of the newspaper of the city's Potential Act.
Okay.
Yeah, our meetings are all held at the same time. They're all the second or fourth Tuesdays of the month at 7
But
p.m.
anyway,
It's
I'm
pretty
not
standard.
trying to
It's
be
all on
a
our
butthead
website.
about this, you know, I'm just saying, I am a patient that needs it, you know. Some people don't need it, but others do.
And again, sir, like he said, we're not stopping you from using it.
I just want to make sure that, you know, I'm not going to get in trouble by, you know, you guys, you know, having an officer stop me, or I'm
No.
at home, you know, and my place smells like marijuana and I'm going to get busted for it. No. Half of the police department here already, I've already showed them my card and they know that I'm legal and stuff. I don't mess with no other drugs. You know, I did in the past, and that was the past.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I was born and raised in Portugal, and I was a heavy drinker, and that's why I'm wasted too, like all other Portuguese. No. Anyway, you were going to say something.
It is absolutely not our intention to stop you from utilizing medical marijuana. If you are a card holder and you get your prescription filled at a cannabis club in a city that allows it to happen, is to stop the growing of marijuana, the transportation of where they cultivation companies come in and deliver the marijuana, that type of activity. We're not looking for the users that need medical marijuana like yourself. We're not going to come knocking on your door and tell you to stop utilizing your
I mean, I
medical
brought
marijuana.
papers to show you guys that, you know, that I'm fighting cancer and still am.
I believe you, sir.
You know, I want to get this damn bag off of my stomach, and I can't because I won't make it through surgery, and they won't do surgery on me, so I got to.
I'm sorry to
You
hear
know,
that.
I know it's none of you guys' problem, but I'm just, you know, as a citizen, and I pay my taxes here, and I love the city here. There's a lot of Portuguese here that I know, that I, back from the Bay Area and stuff when I was younger too, but, you know, I'm just saying, you know, impose it on the people that are out here trying to screw others, not the ones that really need it. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry.
Thank you for your
this.
comments, sir.
Thank you for your comments. I'd also like to just interject here that as part of the ordinance that's before the council for adoption, it says, in part, the intent of Proposition 215 was to enable persons who are in need of marijuana for medical purposes to use it without fear of criminal prosecution under limited specific circumstances. So we're not intending to take your marijuana away. What we're intending is to prevent the cultivation, transportation, and growth of marijuana within the city limits.
I understand that, you know,
Okay.
if I was growing and selling, yeah, I could see you guys, you know, me getting punished for it, because.
We want to
that's
protect
not
everybody.
what, you know, my terms are. My terms are, if I'm gonna grow, I'm growing it because, for me to have, because I can't afford to go out and buy it, as expensive as it is nowadays, and, you know, with the little money that I get, I can't afford it, and I suffer, you know? And
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to say, but I do.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you for
And
your
I-
input.
I thank you for clarifying.
Yeah,
that with
good.
me, too.
Sir, if you're going to continue to make comments, please do it
Okay,
from the podium.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
It's okay.
have to put everything down. Okay, any other?
My name is John Martinez. I've lived here all my life. I've also had cancer, and
Record your address.
442 Dresco Avenue. and I'm fighting cancer. I've had my kidney removed. I've had 2 back surgeries, and I only get $600 a month, and I cannot afford to go buy it. So I need to grow my own. That's all I got to say. I mean, I can't afford to go spend. I'm already paying for my pain pills and that. And so I mean, I've lived here all my life. That's all I got to say. I mean, I need to grow at least 3 plants. That's what I grow. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any other comments from the floor?
My name is Vincent Thompson. I live at 1536 Canyon Creek Drive here in Newman. I just kind of want to actually add a little bit more to what the other 2 or 3 gentlemen have said, but Mr. Holland and Mr. Graham and Chief, you guys seem like you're just saying this is about a cultivation thing. And maybe what the problem is the way you worded it, what I read in the paper. It wasn't just about cultivation. If that's just the way you want to get into prohibition type thing with the marijuana, that's just not right. You know, one of the things it said in the paper was it's a fire hazard. You work with the fire department, right? Have you
Yes,
had
sir.
a lot of marijuana fire hazards since this has been going on?
Yes, sir. Like we
Really?
stated at the last meeting, we have had 2 fires.
Okay,
Locally.
so 2 fires, that's not like a trend, right? And as far as the illegality of the situation, I'm sure there's more crime caused from alcohol in this city. We have liquor stores. We just opened up a new one. You can't. I mean, what it does is what you're trying to do is take the right of good citizens, people who are doing the things proper. You're just whitewashing it and saying, well, since there's some crime that goes with it, you can't do it. Well, why aren't we trying to close the liquor stores? We're not. You know, and I don't understand. Now, if it's just about growing, then you ought to just say this is what we're trying to curtail. But the way the thing's worded, it sounded like you don't even want people to. You can't have a delivery service bring it here, right? Is that what it's saying, or am I misunderstanding? Or maybe, huh?
That's correct.
So no delivery service. So I have to drive to Tracy or San Jose or something to get them. I don't understand what the problem is with someone coming here to delivery. They're doing it legally. I'm purchasing it legally. And it saves me a trip, a 50-minute or so trip to go buy it. And then you're saying something about transportation. If I go to San Jose and buy it, and I drive back into Newman, if I get pulled over, it's in my car, I'm transporting it. Is that a crime now?
It's commercial use, transportation for commercial use.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
like I said, the way you guys have worded this, it makes it very confusing. It sounds like, I mean, look at the people who've talked. It sounds like you're wanting to take it away, and you're not wording it correctly to make it, to give anyone any comfort and like, oh, okay, they're not trying to do this. Because I know, once you get your foot in there, then the next thing, oh, we're going to stomp this out. And these are things that are done legally. It's not like, I mean, if there's crime that's coming from this, how about you police the crime? I mean, I've been in Newman now for 11 years, but I come from the Bay Area where they have a lot of crime, okay? So I know what crime is in the city, and it sucks. But you don't just take away people's rights because there's a crime. But like I said, I guarantee you have more arrests and more problems with alcohol in the city than you do with marijuana. There's no way that that's not true.
I couldn't give you those figures.
I would guarantee you that that's just the way it is. And so what you're doing, you're saying, I mean, people can drink, but then you police the people who are taking advantage of that. What you're trying to do here is group everybody into one group of like, it's illegal. And it's not illegal, and I don't understand. Then I agree with the gentleman here where not everyone's reading the paper every day and looking, especially for a city council thing, and it's kind of like this guy just got shoved in the mail. And my wife sent me a text Sunday night, said they were having this meeting. I said, what the hell, are you kidding me? And then I started reading it, and like I said, a fire. Geez, my wife could start fires in the kitchen. She can still cook. I mean, 2 fires, you said, 2 fires. That happens, you know? I mean, that's not a citywide problem where, oh my God, marijuana growing is going to burn down the city. It's just not going to happen. It's an overreach.
And I think that what you guys are doing in this, the whole ordinance sounds like an overreach. This ordinance doesn't say nothing about just, it's all about cultivation and everything. It seems like it's stepping way past that, and I just don't think it's right, and I don't think it should pass. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to the council?
Hello, my name's Gilbert Martinez. I live at 2027 River Road. I don't grow a lot of marijuana. I grow 3 plants for my pain. I have a broken sternum, and I think you're taking a step backwards. I mean, we should at least have a vote on it. I mean, I just found out about it today that you guys were having a meeting through my brother. And as far as the fires go, this building caught fire. It had nothing to do with marijuana. You know, there was a lot of people that need it medically that really do need it. They're not out there cultivating 1,000 plants or stuff like that, and they have a permit to grow. I have my card, you know, to grow 12 plants. I grow 3 because that's all I need. I just wish you would please think about it and don't vote it out. There's a lot of us that really do need it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to the council?
Actually, I just have a question real quick.
Ron?
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Want me to state my name and address? Ron Jurgensen, 428 Sumac Lane. I'm not for or against the marijuana issue. My question is, would these individuals, if they do bring it from another location, would they be prosecuted under a federal law or the city ordinance, or how would that be?
If anyone was caught with it on their personal, and it was personal marijuana, and they have a Prop 215 card, nothing would happen to them.
Okay, yeah, I just kind of wanted to maybe clarify that for them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Can I make one more statement?
Sure, Brian.
I'm not going to read anything.
Just restate your name and address, please.
My name's Brian Escobar. I live on 25155 Jorgensen Road. So from my understanding now that we are preventing personal cultivation, not industrial cultivation, is that correct? Both. We plan on, so the idea that, the idea behind personal cultivation is cost. What I hear today is cost. It's actually a confirmed medicine for these people, and it's saving them money. So another thing, if we're going to talk about money, is the city is now open to start giving out permits to those, or eventually down the line, make regulations for their city to say, okay, well, if you're going to grow in our city, you can have X amount of plants. We need to have both fire and police have, like, your location need to be inspected every year, and can see a possibility of future, at least income for the city as well, for those who are here who want to grow legally. I think that is something positive to come out of this as well, is that when you know where someone's growing, you can make sure that they are, like for the fire department, you know, not making any sort of illegal tampering with electrical outlets. They are actually within fire code standards, as well as you can always revoke them if they are becoming a problem or a nuisance. I mean, certainly anyone here who has alcohol wants to make sure that their kids aren't, you know, going to have someone steal their alcohol or their firearms. The same thing you would have with marijuana. So with that expectation, I hope that you guys make a decision from that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could maybe address some concerns and some issues that were brought up.
Please.
the intent, and there's some safety concerns with any marijuana grow, and I think the gentleman here stated that he doesn't grow his own marijuana because he's afraid of getting ripped off. Those type of incidents do happen, and they are a public safety hazard. I know there's cases in Modesto where there's been home invasion robberies that have taken place at the wrong house because a medical marijuana grow was close to the area, and they went in with the intent to steal the marijuana and got the wrong house. Locally or semi-close in Turlock, there was a homicide not that long ago at a residence where a medical marijuana grow was taking place, and it was for the benefit of them taking the marijuana. So there's some ultimate serious risk behind the grows in the city. We've had 2 structure fires from illegal wiring where they were stealing power and diverting power in different ways that caught 2 houses on fire. Potentially, we do have a volunteer fire department. The response time is a little longer than a manned fire department, so you're putting other residents at risk with these type of cultivation that happens in these houses with the illegal electricity or just the grow lights that get very hot and take up a lot of power. So there's some serious risk, and not only that is in the past, I think since 2009, we've had over 50 complaints of residents complaining about their neighbors growing marijuana. And prior to this ordinance, if it is passed, there's nothing that the police department could do. If they were under and they had their cards, and quality of life issues is some people, in fact, I believe, do need medical marijuana. They're sitting here, they express their concerns. But when your neighborhood reeks of marijuana and you want to go outside, but your neighbor's growing 12 to 99 plants in their backyard, it's a public nuisance on top of the risk factors that I already stated. So there's just some things that I think, we need to think about.
Thank you, Chief.
If you want to talk, come back up, please.
Jose Ferro, 1346 and a half Beach Street. I am aware of what you're saying, and I do believe what you're saying is true. But to the fires, they were wired illegally and stuff. These guys are not marijuana card miracle holders, and they're not legal. They're doing it illegal because otherwise they wouldn't be stealing the electricity. That's my, my opinion on it. Number 2, as far as people getting ripped off, I could see what you're saying, and them coming in and mistaking the wrong house. But I do believe that if the marijuana people that are here, if they were allowed within the city ordinance here to where they only have 3 plants in their possession in their property, any more than that, then they could suffer the consequence. But 3 plants for a medical person, I think that would be substantial to where they could survive.
I can probably answer some of those questions for you.
Okay.
And in Stanislaus County, you can only have 12 mature plants. And I'm not talking about you people, but there's people out there that will have several cards at one residence. So you have 4 people move in, and now your 12 plants just grew to 48. Okay, so these are the type of issues that we deal with, and there's always ways to skirt the rules. If we say 3, like you're stating, now your roommate moves in and he has a card, now we're at 6. And now you have rent out another room, now we're at 9. And it just continues to grow, or, it goes even further where people will, I have 4 different cards here from 4 different people, they live here, but in fact, they never even come to that property. But how are we supposed to know who, lives there? Because they'll get some mail, or they'll open a bill, so there's mail there, and they have a card, and now you've got 4 or 5 cards at one residence, and the plants just continue to grow and grow and grow.
Well,
and I'm not talking about individuals like yourself. You're correct. But just like anybody else, if you want to talk alcohol, there's age 21 limits on it. There's kids that drink. We all know that there's kids that drink. But there's rules for specific reasons.
I understand that, but if they were to have, or say that they had to come down to the police department and give you a copy of their card, and then they have to post it up wherever they're growing the 3 plants, and you guys made it clear that no matter how many people live in this house, that house can only have 3 plants, then I would be happy with that. Because if somebody else came into my house and I got my 3 plants, you ain't gonna grow your stuff in my place. Sorry, gotta buy it just like I had to.
And what about your neighbors that don't prefer the odor of marijuana, or why should they have to suffer? You're talking about suffering and pain. Why should they have to suffer for something that, I mean, you can go out, you can still go out and get your medicine. We're not stopping that. There's ways to go about it.
But I could build a greenhouse to where they wouldn't smell it, you know? Or build a
every other day here in town.
Anyway,
Mayor,
thank you
can I-
again, sir. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and bring it back to the council. We've heard a lot tonight, and I thank you very much for coming out and expressing your feelings and telling us what you feel and why you feel we should vote the way we vote. But anyway, I'm going to bring it back to council and for direction. So with that, I bring it back to the council.
I think we've done a good job of trying to let people know what's going on. We've followed the requirements that we post the hearings, and we posted the ordinance, the potential ordinance, for people to read. It's available at any time. There was a newspaper article about it. So we've done our due diligence there. I appreciate the comments from all of you who have participated in the discussion tonight. And we'll take that into advisement as we consider this.
If you guys get to vote, why don't we get to vote?
Excuse me, sir. I closed the public hearing. You've had your opportunity to talk. Are you making a motion?
I will, certainly. I move that the city adopt ordinance 2016 next in number, an ordinance of the city of Newman amending Titles 3 Business Regulations and 8 Health and Sanitation, Sections 3.01 Revenue Licenses and 8.07 Medical Marijuana Dispensaries of the Newman Municipal Code and stop there.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried 4-1, 4 present, 1 absent. That covers all. Okay, moving on to 10 regular business. A, report on agreement for biological assessment with wetlands delineation. And
I'll take this one, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you may know, in May of 2004, the city completed a purchase of 103 acres, and that's at the intersection of Inyo and Canal Schools. The 103 acres that we purchased, that's going to be used for both storm drainage and sewer water out there. And then recently, in August of last year, you also allowed staff to start working with Solar City to analyze the potential of putting up some solar panels to offset the power consumption used by not only our building, but major buildings in the city, as well as some of the streetlights. One of the issues that we found out there on the 103 acres is there's a potential for wetlands to exist out there in compliance with Sections 401 and 404 of the Clean Water Act. And so in order to be compliant with that, we're recommending that we go out and do a biological survey of the area first of that 3 acres that we want to use to make sure that we're not violating federal law. And so the biologist will go out and take a look and see if that area qualifies as wetlands as defined by the Clean Water Act. If it is, we'll have to come back to you and look at a bigger picture. If it isn't, then that'll allow us to proceed forward with that project. So the cost of that project and the proposal is in front of you, it's 9,077, but if you add a 10% contingency, we're asking you to go ahead and approve that contract for an amount not to exceed $10,000. I can answer any questions that you may have.
Questions of the council? Bring it back to the council for direction, please.
I move that we approve the report on the agreement for the biological assessment and wetland delineation.
Second the motion.
Motion is made and second.
Casey, would you consider in an amount not to exceed $10,000, please?
In an amount not to exceed $10,000.
Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
We're all in agreement.
good.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 4 with 1 absent.
Thank you, Casey.
Moving on to item 11, District 5 Stanislaus County Supervisor, Mr. Jim D. Martini.
Good evening, Mayor Martina, members of the council, and staff. The last time I was here, I told you I would give you a report on the South County corridor. This is what it looks like, 64 pages long. It's everything you wanted to know about the South County corridor, but we're afraid to ask. I have went through this thing, and I'll just give you kind of the basics of it. There's 18 different alternatives for the corridor that were studied. And the corridor, just to define that, is a 4-lane expressway that connects Highway 99 with Highway 5. And the study is what was the best route. So it's an expressway, not a freeway, so there's limited access to it, no cross traffic, except in a few places. So out of the 18 alternatives that were studied, they're down to about 3 right now. There were 4 basic designs of the corridor. They were, in their report, they list them as the Fink Road corridor, the Sperry Avenue corridor, the Zacharias Road corridor, Folkerth Road, and Marshall Road. Most of them have been discarded, and the study looked at all kinds of impacts of this corridor on air quality, agriculture, species, traffic, noise, you name it. It was probably a consultant's dream working on this thing. But they're down to about 3 right now. And the ones that have been picked, or at least recommended in this study, are what they call 4D, 7A, and 12H. And that's their own internal numbers for it. But the 4D goes down West Main. In fact, every one of these starts at West Main in Turlock, all of them. And this one goes down to about Jennings Road, and then makes a turn to the north and kind of lines up with Folkerth Road. And it really goes through the city of Modesto's sewage treatment plant, and then takes a turn to the west, and will go across it would have to construct a new bridge across the Tuolumne River, and then over to Eucalyptus Road, across Highway 33, and into Zacharias, and then would have to have a new interchange at Highway 5, and then you also have to go across Del Puerto Creek. This one is clearly the most expensive. The strange thing about these, they all show them relatively about the same expense. But when you go across Tuolumne River with a new bridge and then a new interchange on Highway 5, you're really talking about some really big money there. And you have to buy all the right-of-way. That one is estimated at $265 million. I would think easily you could add $100 million to it, once you really looked at it a little bit closer. The next alternative is what they call 7A, and that is an alignment similar to 4D. It's a North County corridor. They have north and south, and the two of them are to the north. And this one is down West Main, but it goes across the existing bridge at West Main and then turns to the north and then to the west, also using Eucalyptus Road to Zacharias. It would also require an interchange around Zacharias Road just to the north of Patterson. Now, this one's another costly one, although we would not have the expense of building a second bridge across the Tuolumne River, but it still would require a new interchange at Zacharias Road. Estimates for this one is $272 million, and surprisingly, that's more than the other one that has to come up with an entirely new bridge. So how they got these figures will be kind of a question they're going to have to answer when it goes to Stancog. 12H is the southern corridor. This one also goes down West Main, turns at Crow's Landing Road and comes south and connects with Fink Road, and then uses the existing interchange at Fink Road. This one, I think, is the most feasible, and it is of the 18 that was studied, and even in the 3 that were picked as the most likely candidates, this one was the cheapest one at $215 million. And actually, I think the cost on this one is probably estimated as higher as what it can be. What I don't know in this study is if that includes the bridge that the county is going to put in on Crow's Landing Road already. Regardless of where this route is, the bridge at Crow's Landing Road will be replaced. We have some funding for it. It will be a 4-lane bridge. If this route is taken, you would not have to figure in the cost of that bridge because we're doing it anyway. This project is probably, according to this study, about 10 years out. It goes to Stancog as not really an action item, but an update in the meeting in March. It's not going to be next month. The consultants are going to be there, and they're going to go through their report and their studies. So, of the 18 routes that were studied, they're recommending 3. And this project has got a long ways to go, but anything that runs up to about $200 million is, it's a pretty big bite. There is no funding identified for this project yet, but then you don't have a plan and a route either, and so you're not going to get funding unless you have the plan and the route. So a lot of work has been done on this, and if you want this, I can leave this here if the council wants it. This was just downloaded off of the Stancog website. There was a internet survey on valleyvisions.com where people could vote for their favorite route, and I don't really take much credence into that. The most expensive one over there in Patterson Zacharias Road was the one that got the most votes, but I think those might have been salted a little bit too from people who really had something to gain by the route going over that way. I don't really know that though, but the concern that I would have this is that these 3 routes are very close in price. They're very different. The southern route, 12H, really only requires some right-of-way to be bought. We're going from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane, and no new bridge and no new interchange. So I would think that would be quite a bit cheaper than what they're showing. So they're going to have to justify their figures, at that meeting. But really, that's where it's at. This is kind of a big deal in this area. The cities of Newman, Patterson, and Turlock are the ones affected by this route, and so we want to be sure to pick the best route. And there's a lot of public money that's going to be going into this, so we want to be sure we get the best bang for the buck, and the project that we can all live with. In other news, Healthcare Task Force meets again February 25th right here in Newman at your old city council chambers. So we look forward to that. Task Force has worked on a variety of projects. We've applied for our first grant off of San Joaquin Health Foundation We will find out in about a month or so whether we got that grant or not, and that would be grant to continue on our operations. In the meantime, we did get another donation from Tenet, which is Manual and Doctors Hospital. So we've been able to fund our programs through a variety of ways, and we do have a liaison that works part-time in this area now. We're working very closely with Family Resource Center, which just the last 2 years in particular. And one of our projects is to put a Family Resource Center into the city of Gustine. Newman already has one, and so does Patterson, but Gustine does not. Does not. And so we are working, on their behalf to get that secured. And I think that's all I have. So, if you have any questions, I'll make an attempt to answer them.
Thank you, Jim.
No questions tonight.
Okay, great. That's
Thank
why
you
I
very
like it.
much.
Okay, thank you.
12 would be items from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We're working with our legal counsel, Churchill White, right now to get a legislative update for you guys. So they'll probably be attending one of your meetings coming up here to give you a legislative update about all the shenanigans, the things that they're doing in Sacramento. So, you can look forward to that coming forward in one of your council agendas. We're working with the county, some of their staff members right now. I'm going to start meeting with them on Crow's Landing Air Base and some of the other countywide projects that are going on the west side. So we're going to try to maybe do some regularly scheduled meetings. We'll see how that goes, and I'll report back the findings to you on those. I am pleased to announce that this last week we just completed all our paperwork and an agreement for a wastewater treatment plant grant, $500,000 that you allow staff to apply for just in the third quarter of last year. So they should be getting all the paperwork and filling that all out, and hopefully within the next 30 days we'll be awarded a $500,000 grant to do some planning studies with respect to our wastewater treatment plant out where Lance works. And then just lastly, rec basketball is still going on, so if you're interested in catching a basketball game, Hunt or the high school on Saturday mornings, and Little League and softball, baseball signups are going on right now. So look in the newspaper for those decent times. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? No questions? Chief?
Evening, Mayor, council members. Pleased to announce that shortly before our council meeting, we did serve a search warrant and arrest warrant on the suspect from our shooting that happened on the 18th. So he's in custody now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have of me.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Good evening. To follow up on the point-in-time count, Chief Bowen and I will be participating in that count on Thursday. We'll be focusing on areas outside of Pioneer Park within the city limits. There's a few other areas here in town that we know that some of the homeless congregate, so we're hoping to be able to survey them and get a accurate count to report to the county. Also, there's 2 teams working on the PIT here in Newman. It's the Family Resource Center, and they'll be stationed out at the park. And then there's the city-led team that will be more of a roaming survey unit. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? No questions. Thanks, Stephanie. Lou, tell us what we're in good financial shape.
Yeah, we'll see you at all next meeting. We have our, at our next meeting, we'll have our review of the budget at mid-year. And then also our treasurer's reports for December are in your inbox.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, City Mayor and council members. Just one clarification regarding the South County Quarter. Jim DiMartini explained really clearly regarding 3 alignments. Just one more clarification regarding the southern alignment, which is 12H. In the feasibility study level, we assume that existing roadway condition is terrible because we are always thinking about worst scenarios. It is why when we develop the cost estimate for the southern alignment, we assume that we are going to take out the existing Fink Road and put a brand new expressway. That's why the cost estimate was over $200 million. But once we move to the next level, PSR, project study, the level, we are going to conduct more detailed engineering report, and we will find out that the chance to take out the existing roadway is very low. That means the cost estimate going to be much lower. That's a high chance. So I just want to make sure that at this point, that's why the solar alignment is a little bit more expensive, but we are expecting a little lower, I think much lower in the next level. Yeah. That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Keith, good evening.
Evening, Mayor, Council. As you guys know, we did have a structure fire on our street just a few days ago. Like to report no injuries. The foundation in the structure are still standing. The structure wasn't occupied at the time, but it might have been a area that was being vacated by those without shelter. So, any questions?
You think the fire was started by vagrants?
It's under investigation, so we're getting
Okay.
assistance from Stanislaus County on that, and if I get a report, I'll be more than happy to report that.
The only reason I asked it, because I've talked to several people, they've come to me and said that they know that people are living in a lot of vacant houses, and that has to be a real concern, that, these fires can start any time, but, I mean, I understand people trying to find shelter in difficult times, but something we should be aware of. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
It sounded like from your report that we got good support from our surrounding areas too. The other fire departments in the area came and supported us.
Correct. So as you know, we are a primarily volunteer fire department, minus my position. So we did have a total of almost 22 firefighters. Those are different ranks. So feet on the ground, actually putting out fire was probably about 16 to 18 actual. So yeah, we got assistance from Gustine, which we do have automatic aid agreements in place. West Stanislaus Fire Protection District and City of Patterson.
That's great.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Casey, anything tonight?
Yeah, I got two things. There's a homeless encampment near the railroad just north of town, right by the Welcome to Newman sign. It's kind of hidden by tumbleweeds, and it's about 10 to 15 feet off of the railroads, which is technically railroad property. It's not.
It's Caltrans, and
Caltrans.
we've contacted them, and they're supposed to come down and take a look at it.
Okay. Yeah, they're pretty well hidden back in there, and there's been a couple people have mentioned it to me, so I don't know if we can reach out to them and see if we can get them relocated to some other spot other than that. The other thing was I've had a couple people ask me about Barrington Park. The north parking lot is awfully dark, and they get a lot of cars parking in there throughout the nights and doing a lot of things they probably shouldn't be doing. A couple people have brought up they're scared to have their kids even cross through there because of the cars parked there. So I don't know if we can look into that, and maybe see about putting a light in there to light up the parking lot during the night.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. In the meantime, we'll increase patrol in that area and take a look at it, but we'll have Public Works look for a potential source of energy that could.
Right. Just
support a
one,
light.
it seems like one light in the middle would put enough on it that people wouldn't want to park there, and
Sure.
that's all I have.
Thank you, Casey. Nick?
Nothing tonight.
Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend the Stanislaus Business Alliance meeting and received, the Alliance voted on goals for the coming year. We got a report here just I think at our last meeting of the successes of the Alliance last year in meeting the goals for new jobs, new business creation, and that kind of thing in Stanislaus County. The Alliance voted for, the full board voted for establishing new goals for the coming year, and this is part of reaching the goals that were set for 2020. We'll keep you posted as we continue to move through this. Also, there was a rollout of Operation Stanislaus, which is a program for encouraging businesses to come into Stanislaus County and looking to advise businesses of the potential opportunities that exist in our county, and I'm sure we as the city will be looking at that too as we look at our west side development. I've provided information to city manager, and he'll see that copies are provided to each of the council members. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know sometimes these things don't go the way you want them to, but at least we try to give everyone an opportunity to express their feelings. And sorry it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, but we take into consideration the whole city as a whole, so that's what we're looking at. So anyway, thank you for coming out, and I'd like to bring it back to council for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.